Have you ever made your own sausage? How about rabbit sausage? Probably not. That's what we're doing today. Ahoy everyone, I'm Chris from Rustic Rabbit and welcome back to the channel. Now if you're new to our channel, we teach you how to raise your own meat, grow your own food, do all that in your backyard, but then we take you into the kitchen or the patio and we teach you how to make some really cool recipes, some amazing food, and do something really special with it. Alright, so to start off, making sausage is a lot like making beer, if you've ever done that. There's just a million different ways you can kind of mix it up, and the flavors are going to just be as ranging as your imagination. So it's a lot of fun to make sausage because you can do anything from a kielbasa, a spicy Italian. You could do a DIJON. You could experiment with it. Breakfast sausage, totally different flavors, totally different aromas. But if you use it with the rabbit, it's actually pretty lean. So you have to start off with going ahead and procuring pork fat. If you go to your local butcher, I go to HEB in Texas. It's a grocery store. Basically, you go to the meat market section. They're getting everything in bulk. They cut it all up. They package it. They put it out there for retail. But when they trim everything, they usually take all that fat. They throw it in a bin and they get rid of it. They discard it. So if you call them and say, "Hey, I want some of that pork fat," they'll put it off to the side and they'll sell it to you like $1 a pound, like something really cheap. So basically, the rule of thumb, by and large, for making sausage, for people who make sausage out of venison and something that's pretty lean, you typically want a 20% amount of fat and 80% lean meat. So for rabbit, with it being super lean, you want to go with at least 20%, or I found that. If you don't, it's not going to have any binding element, and it's going to kind of crumble apart after you cook it. All the moisture will kind of dry out and it'll kind of crumble. You'll see what I mean when you get it wrong. And you will, because it takes a few tries to kind of get the hang of it. But normally you get enough of that fat, it kind of binds it together, makes it a little bit more sticky, and then when it cooks, that fat kind of renders, keeps everything moist, and it keeps it together. So 20% fat, 80% lean meat. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is go to your store, your either butcher or your local grocery store, grab some of that fat. I usually use pork fat, really cheap to get it there. Like I said, I pay about $1 a pound. Get that, kind of chill it, don't need to freeze it, and cut it into manageable sizes so that you can have that ready to go. For the meat, you're going to want to make sure you debone your rabbits. Obviously the loins, things like that come off pretty easy, but to use as much meat as you can, it just takes some practice on how to deboning these rabbits. I get pretty good at it, but it takes me quite a bit of time to do it, so I didn't include that in the video. Once you get started here, you want to make sure you're going back and forth between your lean meat and your pork fat, because ultimately if you do all one, too much fat in the hopper actually causes it to clog sometimes. And two, once you get it all there, minced and in a bowl, you need to get it mixed pretty good. So if you're just alternating back and forth between the meat and the fat, it'll kind of already be naturally mixed, and then you get your hands and you kind of squish it around and you'll mix it up properly. I like to use the coarse setting on my grinder, but you can do whatever feels best for you. A trick I noticed too as well, when you're trying to get the rest of the meat that's out of your hopper, get a piece of bread and stuff that down there and use that as a plug, and that'll kind of push the rest of the meat that's in that hopper through the grinder, so you can use as much of it as possible. Now, what I like to do, like you said, you're making these giant amounts of just meat, that's ground meat. That's all you need. You can pack that up, and now you have ready for burgers. They're patties, they're ready to go. Or what I like to do is I weigh it and I get it into like 5-pound batches, and then I'll add my ingredients to each batch and try and come up with a flavor that I like. So for instance, batch number 1, I'll add some spices, do whatever I think is good, and keep track of it. And then I'll get a little piece of it, I'll put it on a frying pan, I'll cook it for a few minutes, and then I'll taste it. And if it needs something more, I go back to my batch and I add some ingredients, and then I taste test it again by cooking on the frying pan again. The problem with not doing that is if you kind of commit to a set of spices and then you go through the trouble of making the sausage, putting it in casings, doing all that, freezing it, and then when you go cook it, you're like, oh, this isn't exactly what I wanted. Now you got 5 pounds of something you didn't exactly want. So make sure you're testing it as you go. Okay, so now you don't have to do casings. That's what's important. You can make patties out of it, whether it be breakfast patties or hamburger patties, or you can put it in casings. Now, typically, just so you know, the hog casings is what I get. You can get that. I get it at Cabela's, but you can get it, pretty much anywhere, Amazon, whatever. It comes, stored in salt. You got to rinse it out real good, then soak it in water. I do that overnight, and you can see here they're pretty easy to kind of manipulate. If you use lamb casings, those are like a thinner diameter, so that's like the typical breakfast links you would see for breakfast sausage. But these bigger links are typically a hog casing. Now, sausage takes some practice because what's going to happen is it's going to push everything out and you're going to feed it into the casing. If you overstuff it, it's going to burst when you go to twist it into links. If you understuff it, there's going to be a lot of air bubbles and things like that, and the moisture's not going to be right, and the casing will actually be kind of tough when it dries out. So you just kind of have to get a feel for it. A lot of people like to twist it as they load it. I've done that before. There's some benefit to it, but I prefer at this point to just get it all in, kind of work it, manipulate it, and twist it so I can get like a Sharpie, a ruler, or something so I can have a basic length of link so I can get it consistent for the size of my links. Okay, so if you went with the links, if you went ahead and got all your sausage and you put it into the casing and you twist it around, you got it into links, there's two different ways you can kind of store that. You can either freeze it as the links, but it's now uncooked sausage. So whenever you give it to a buddy or you go to cook it yourself, you got to be real careful. It's still just like kind of mushy as it defrosts, and if you cook it, flash cook it, or you get it too hot, it's going to either spill out of the sides because it'll kind of untwist, or sometimes it'll kind of just burst because all the different juices and everything are going to want to go somewhere, so the steam will actually make it pop. So you can kind of pierce it as you're cooking it, or you can pre-cook it like I like to do. So typically if you get a smoker, like a pellet smoker like this, okay, you put it at a low temperature, a lot of smoke, you get it in there and you space them all out and just let it cook for a couple hours until you get an internal temp of 165. Once you've done that, it is safe to eat. It is cooked, okay? But that's as far as I go with it. Then I take it straight off the grill, I put it in an ice bath, stop that cooking right away, and then I put it on a plate, let it all dry out. Once it's dried out, then you could actually individually package the links, or 2 or 3 or 4 at a time or whatever, just so they're portioned. And that way, when you freeze it like that, it's already packaged, it's already cooked, and it's just in the freezer ready to go. So it's much easier to prepare quickly for a meal. Okay, so here's an example. This is one of my recipes you can see here, hot Italian. Okay, basically it's a little bit spicy, not too much, but it's an Italian sausage. So we use this for we'll take this, we'll defrost it, kind of cook it in the pan a little bit over some olive oil, and then we'll cut it up, put it with some pasta sauce, and right over some pasta. That's really all you need, and it's a great meal. It's delicious. You would never know you're not eating like traditional Italian sausage, but this is actually much healthier for you, and you made it yourself. So, but this is an example of we've taken everything. It's been linked. It's been pre-cooked on the smoker. It's been vacuum packed and stored in the freezer, and this will store for quite some time. I do this with several different flavors, so if I go in my freezer at any time, I might have 5-10 pounds of this, 5-10 pounds of breakfast sausage, of all these other different recipes that I try. And that's what's fun about sausage, is you just, every time you go, you kind of experiment and you make something different, make some of the stuff that is a go-to, and it's a lot of fun. Okay, y'all, so the recipe that got you to watch this video, that picture, that's a DIJON recipe that I developed with some R&D in the kitchen. I'll put the recipe down in the description along with a few other recipes. Hopefully this was helpful for you. It got you interested in making the sausage. If you have any questions, leave in the comments below. Again, I encourage you to subscribe and get anyone you know to subscribe. I love interacting with people who are interested. And nothing else. God bless, guys.